Raise some
cane. You gotta raise some cane. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some cane, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, the time is now. We gotta raise some cane.
Welcome to the Raising Cane Show. I'm your host, Nate Kane, and today we have a truly inspiring guest joining us, Tim James. Tim is not just a health advocate, he's a living testament to the power of transformation. After facing severe health challenges, including digestive issues and personal loss, Tim embarked on a remarkable journey to take control of his health in a radical way. That journey led him to create Chemical Free Body, a company dedicated to helping people detox and nourish their bodies with chemical-free products and practices. His mission is simple yet profound, teaching people how to heal from trauma, reclaim their health, and live longer, happier lives. Tim, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Nathan, thanks for having me, my friend. Appreciate being here, and I hope that we can help some people tonight.
Definitely. I can't wait to dive into your incredible story and the work that you're doing to transform lives. So you've been through quite an incredible health journey of your own. What was the turning point that made you realize that you had to take control of your health in a radical way? That's probably the best place to start, I would think.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of little turning points. I guess the biggest one was, leading up to the big turning point, people have to understand that, I grew up over here in Eastern Oregon on a small cattle and hay farm. I was hunting and fishing all the time. I was out in the woods. We had a big garden. I was used to nature. I understood it. We were doing things to the soil like Roundup and things that I know now are not good, and tilling the soil, which that's why we're getting into regenerative farming now. But leading up to that, I was on the standard American diet. I found myself at age 37, 42 pounds overweight. I was a financial advisor. We had 3 offices. I was taking over a big practice. All my buddies said I had it made because I was taking over my new friend Jeff's practice, and he was getting ready to retire. And I just, as an athlete, I played baseball for 30 years. I was very avid and into sports, but especially baseball, just to give people my background. Then all of a sudden, I gained all this weight. I'm, pooping blood for 2.5 years every time I'd have a bowel movement. It was very painful, very painful. I had acid reflux really bad. I was eating Tums and Rolaids 24/7. I had eczema on all my elbows and knees, except not my right knee, but my left knee. That's where it started. And then it spread to the rest of my body. And that would crack and bleed and stain and bleed through my shirts, and people would notice it. And it would stick to my shirt. So sometimes nights I'd have to take a shower and, to loosen the shirt and get it off my body. It was painful, like peeling it off, like a sticker. And that went on for a long time. And I went to the doctor, and they wanted to give me a bunch of pills. I never took them, Prilosec and stuff. But the list of side effects sounded worse than what I had.
All right.
So I just never, I'm like, why would I do that? I'm like, blindness, or just weird stuff, I'm just like, I ain't doing it. Increased gambling, it's just like, what? Weird rectal bleeding. That was like, I'm trying to get rid of it, anal seepage. That's a fun one. So my health was waning. I couldn't really even run around a track anymore. Mental fog. But I was just hustling, I was trying to mortgage and a couple of boys, and, doing their sports and being their coach and doing everything I could to be involved in their life, and had a wife and things to take care of. And then my friend on my baseball team, Kalei Mahoy, got diagnosed with stomach cancer, and we lost him. And that was really painful. He literally died about 80 pounds under his weight. And he looked like somebody from Auschwitz. You couldn't even recognize him. And I was there on his last baseball game, and he was spitting blood up on the bench. And I remember looking at him, and my other buddy was on the other side of him looking at me and shaking his head. And finally he's like, Clay, he's like, what the hell are you doing out here? And he's like, hey man, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out doing what I love. And I love playing baseball. So I was like, what do you say to that? It's like, let's play ball, just whatever. Cause he's going to go, and he did. And we raised a bunch of money for him. He didn't have any insurance. And, the sad thing was he left 3 little boys behind that they no longer have a father. So that was my first up close and personal with a guy that was 40 years old, pretty close to my age. I had lost my aunt to melanoma skin cancer that spread to her lungs. My mom did the hospice care for that deal. And that was awesome watching my mom do that. I mean, she was a saint. It's a lot of hard work. And I didn't realize how hard that work was until I had to take care of my mom recently, and she just passed. But a year and a half of hospice care with her, that was hard. So anybody that has to do that hospice stuff, it's you're an angel, and it's really sad. We shouldn't be doing this, especially with our kids nowadays. This shit's gone rampant, where cancer is the #1 killer for our children from 1 to 5. It's insane. Brain cancer and leukemias. It's number 2 for children 5 to 16 after accidents. I mean, kids are still out exploring, so accidents are prevalent. But, brain cancer and leukemias are getting our kids. Children are born in the womb today, Nathan, with hundreds of chemicals that cause cancer in these young mothers.
Right.
So anyway, back to my story. I end up on a vacation down to northern Peru with my wife. She was from Lima, Peru, and with her dad, who happened to be a medical doctor, ran a big clinic down there in Lima. And a few days into it, I was a mess, and we were out deep sea fishing, and they thought that I was motion sickness. I said, hey, look, I don't get motion sickness at all. I fish all the time. I've been on the coast. I'm in Hawaii. We did all that stuff, and I don't get sick. I got back to the little hacienda thing there, and I wasn't getting better. And finally he's like, how come you're not getting better? This motion sickness should be gone by now. And I'm like, dude, I told you it ain't motion sickness. And he examined me. He's a medical doctor. He's like, oh shit, we got to get you to the hospital. And we raced down to, I'm bent over like a 90-degree angle because I can't even walk. I'm in so much pain. We zipped down to the airport. We just missed the airplane. There's only like 1 flight out of there a day. I missed it by 20 minutes. He said, we can't wait. You're going to die. So we rented a van, or he did. I was kind of out of it in pain. And we drove down this bumpy road 6 hours in the middle of the night. And that was the most painful experience of my life. I mean, I've been through some tough stuff. And man, every bump was like somebody jabbing me with an ice pick or stabbing me with a knife in the back. And it was just like bumpity bump for 6.5 hours. When I got there, I was soaked. The paper money in my wallet was wet from all the sweating. And my wife just kind of held me in her lap. And then we went into this little hospital in Piora. It was the closest hospital. And they're talking Spanish a million miles an hour. And I'm telling you what, dude, this was like a third world country. I mean, it's kind of like the United States is getting now,
Right.
And I'm looking up I'm in the examination room, and I look up above me, and there's bugs, like 1,000 bugs flying around my head. And all the instruments look like they're from the 50s. And I'm like, this ain't good. So they're talking, and he doesn't want them. It's like a MASH unit, and he doesn't want them to operate on me there. So he has them dope me up, and he books a commercial plane flight. Now, you're not supposed to do this. I was basically getting life flighted. What nobody knew except for my wife and her dad, the doctor. So he sat next to me and monitored me on the plane flight there. And 3.5 hours later, I landed in Lima, and they got out of into a taxi, and they took me right up into surgery. And those doctors did surgery and saved my life. And that's where Western medicine shines. It was born out of crisis care. It was born out of MASH units and people blowing their arms off and getting grenades, blowing their guts out and patching them up and saving their lives. So there's definitely a need for that. I don't know about you, but if my son gets in a car accident and they can fix him, that's a good deal.
I've always said that it feels like I've lived in some other countries. I lived in Japan. I lived in Korea. And I always felt like when it comes to treating disease, it seems like our doctors don't know what the hell they're doing. But when it comes to like shock trauma, you know, you get your arm cut off. I mean, we got the amazing doctors that can sew your arm back on. And, you know, it's insane the kind of things that they can do,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of like trauma treatment. But yeah, just standardized, you know, medicine when it comes to health and treating disease, nobody seems to have any answers. All they have is drugs that just, you know, basically treat treat the symptoms, but they don't actually treat the problem. And it
And
seems
cause
like
more problems.
exactly.
And the reality is like these doctors and nurses, you know, you and I have talked to hundreds of them. Probably I know I've talked to a gazillion of them, and you know, they're the good girls and boys in this equation. You know, they originally got into medicine to really help people, and they didn't. They're in a broken system. Again, on the one side of things for crisis care, fantastic diagnostics, amazing, but you know, chronic issues fail. I mean, it's an F. You got to, you know, you're out of there. So you got to get somebody else out there. And same thing with a lot of stuff, even the farmers, you know, and I'm pretty clear on it. But we, you know, we don't point out problems without solutions. You can't just tell people there's a big problem without giving them a solution. I learned that a long time ago. People get upset.
Well, you mentioned something earlier when you were talking about kids getting cancer and how babies are born, you know, with exposure to toxic chemicals. And I think that's one of the things that seems to be a real problem. Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you know about the types of exposures that we're experiencing today versus, like, say, what, you know, our parents or grandparents, you know, were exposed?
Well, I'll just finish the story. It wraps right into it because my friend had cancer and he got it from chemicals. So that's how I learned about it. So right after that deal in Peru, they sewed me up. My wife wheelchairs me back in the United States. Then a few years later, my friend Charles gets diagnosed with cancer. And so he's like, hey, I want you to go with me to this health institute in Florida called Hippocrates. They've been around like 61 years at the time, and they do detox nutrition. His wife had went there years ago, and she was probably, I think, 23 years older than him, and she looked amazing. Like she learned some stuff there and followed those principles. And he said, if I ever get real sick, then I'll go there and do something. But until then, I'm just going to do my thing. And so he finally got sick and got cancer. And he's like, I got to go now. And I want you to go with me. So luckily he had that sandbagged for both of us because I had no idea what I was getting into. My friend said, hey, I want you to go with me. Judith can't get away. I need some support. I got cancer. And I'm like, dude, I heard that. I'm like, I don't care where you're going. I'm in. Like, you don't even have to tell me twice. I don't care what it is. I'm in. Now, if it wouldn't have been cancer, there's no way I would have went to that place because my ego was in the way, and the way I was, you know, I raised, you know, hunting and fishing. My whole life revolved around meat. And when I got there, it was all plant-based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a little nervous actually on the plane flight. He waited and told me, he's like, there's no meat there. And I'm like, what? You know, what are you talking about? What do you mean there's no meat? And then I thought about it and I was like, well, shit, I like salad bar in high school. I used to eat salad bar, and then I think I eat apples. I'd eat strawberries and stuff, and out of the you know, corn out of the garden. I guess it's whatever. And I guess I'll, you know, they've been around 61 years. I haven't killed anybody yet, and people stay there for like 3-4 weeks at a time. So I figured, whatever. Just put your fear on the side. You got to take care of your buddy here. So we end up going to this place, and they basically just put us on purified water with lemon and lime juice in it. They started making these green juices twice a day with sprouts. We were doing wheatgrass shots. We were actually putting wheatgrass rectally up our rear with enemas. Everybody in that place, they have enemas like going like crazy and all kinds of stuff, and wheatgrass implants rectally, and which I know people are probably listening thinking that's crazy. Believe me, wait till you go to one of these places and you got to do it. I think it's crazy. Like, I just did it because I paid for the whole thing, and he's like, you got to do this with me, and I'm like, man. Then they were like, day 3, they wanted us to do colonics. Have you ever heard of those?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so for those listening, I didn't know what it was. It's called a colon hydrotherapy or colonic. You basically sit on a tube rectally, and water goes in and out of you for an hour, and it cleans out your colon. And the reason why you want to do that is this Dr. Scott Josephson taught us that there's average person, especially Western American people, got about 6 to 12 pounds of impacted fecal material in the colon. And if you're not feeling good, you're not feeling healthy, you got headaches, you're overweight, you got disease, or you're just not feeling up to it, yeah, it's probably you know. So I dropped 11 pounds of that stuff doing a colon hydrotherapy session. I wasn't going to do it either. I told Charles, I'm like, hey man, I came here to help you, but I'll do all this stuff. I'll do the enemas night, but I ain't doing that deal. And with that lady there helping me, you know, it's weird. But but they were smart. They actually showed videos of like a 24-year-old woman with she had Hashimoto's and thrush, which is a yeast infection. And
Yeah.
you think you're going to he's going to show us the insides of people's colons, 3 unhealthy people and 1 person that's healthy. And I'm thinking, you're going to go into somebody's colon, you're going to see some brown stuff. I mean, that's what I'm thinking I'm going to see. The inside of the lining of the colon, which is probably pink. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And you go inside this gal's colon, who's 24 years old. It's all white and yellow, completely overgrown with yeast. And I thought to myself, I'm like, that don't look healthy. That don't look good. No wonder she's sick. Then they went to a 65-year-old male, and this guy's he had stage 4 colon cancer. His colon was black as midnight. It was like black tar with white worms crawling around. He had parasites.
Oh, wow.
Everybody in the places skin started crawling. And I started thinking, well, maybe one of these colon hydrotherapies ain't a bad deal.
Yeah, right. Clean me out.
Next gal was a 45-year-old woman with breast cancer and black as tar, a little bit of brown stuff. And then finally, there was this healthy person that had been on this program, healed themselves, and inside of her colon was all pink and clean and some brown stuff. I'm like, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's what I thought. And that's when it all tumbled into place for me. And I'm like, this is an inside game. If my tractor is not running well, or my truck's not running well, I don't just go throw some good fuel in it. I got to take it into the shop. And if the engine's plugged up and gummed up, the colon, the small intestine, which they are, then we got to clean it up and then put good fuel in it, new spark plugs, new fuel filter. And then you got to learn how to maintenance it. And nobody has been given a maintenance manual to the human body. We've been misled by industry. Right. So we're being deficient processed foods for a long time. Lots of chemicals coming in all over the place. And so to wrap that story up, so we can get to the chemical question in the umbilical cord, which is the reason why I'm here. When I saw those studies, I looked at Charles after, I felt not the greatest after about 3 days. I was kind of going through some detox symptoms there. And then I woke up Thursday morning, man, and I felt like I was 30 years younger. I felt like I was 18 again. Wow. And I told Charles, I said, man, sorry, I've been put out insulation. I got insulation in my throat. My arms are itching like crazy. Anyway, but it's rock wool, so it's non-toxic, but it still itches. So anyway, I looked at him and I said, man, I feel freaking amazing. I go, do you feel as good as I do? And he's like, yeah, I do. I said, my arms are literally tingling with energy. My mental clarity is back. Like, I feel amazing. I said, you're going to heal, dude. I've been interviewing all these people. I thought this was some woo-woo BS deal, but I mean, it's actually kind of common sense. It's just that we plug ourselves back. We clean up the body. We get all these toxins and sludge out of the body and the cells. You flood the body with real living nutrition that's alive. And then you learn how to reduce your stress and respond differently to stress so you don't blow out your adrenals and your cortisol, which is an internal chemistry deal. And voila. And so I said, let's do it. I'm going to give up all meat except for bacon, and we're going to go home and juice, and we're going to do all this stuff. And then I read the China study on the way home, and I actually gave up meat completely for 8.5 years. Wow. All my friends thought I'd lost it. But I'll tell you what happened. When I got back home, in 60 days, I dropped the 42 pounds. It was all gone. All the skin issues were gone except for the patch on my knee, that big one. That took about 8 months. But in 60 days, I had 2 different skin issues besides the eczema. One on my back, that was gone. I'm like, what in the heck is going on here? Because I told my wife, I was like, hey, can you look at that thing, see how big it is? Because we're going to go back to Peru, and her dad had this plastic surgeon guy, and I could get in there for free because I was the son-in-law of the hospital, and I'd go get treatments and stuff. And he was going to squirt some more stuff in there and kill it because it bubbled up before, and then it flattened down, but then 3 more bubbled up around it. I don't know what it was, this fat, weird stuff. And she's like, it's gone. And I'm like, what? And I remember sprinting to the bathroom and looking in the mirror and going, it's gone. Like, how is that even possible? And so this was the beginning of me being amazed of my own immune system and what was possible, and actually seeing it in action. Because I just, when somebody tells me to do something and it works, I'll follow it to a T. And so 2.5 years later, Charles healed himself with stage 4 of his cancer with no chemo, no surgery, no radiation. He did it through diet and lifestyle. And I watched it happen. And we were really well connected in the community there because as a financial advisor, he ran a big mortgage company. We knew all kinds of people, real estate agents, attorneys, CPAs. I mean, we knew appraisers, realtors. We knew tons of them. And the story started spreading about the results I was getting and Charles healing himself. And I found myself Charles sent everybody to me. And I started teaching classes, these detox nutrition classes, just randomly, just telling my story and then just showing people how to make juice. And finally, I'm like, maybe I should just teach a class. And then we made them once a week and then twice a week. And the classes filled up. And I taught like 5,500 people these classes in my home over about a 5.5-year period. And I learned a lot and I met a lot of people and I got to see a lot of the sad byproducts of the failed cancer industry. And actually, one of those guys that came over had a big tumor on the side of his face. He reminded me of my grandpa that I love so dearly. And he didn't make it, but I ended up growing sprouts in my garage because I lived in suburbs back then when I was in Portland, and we were delivering sprouts and wheatgrass to about 40 to 60 cancer patients a week while I was a financial advisor. So then my little brother dies of a mountain biking accident, and that's when I was like, that's it. I'm done. I called up Jeff. I said, I'm getting out. I'm done. He's, what are you talking about? I said, I'm leaving financial advising. Sorry. I know you count on me to take over your business, but I'm going to go tell people about green juice and sprouts and help people with their health. That's what I'm passionate about. And I don't care about the money anymore. My brother's dead. He went out doing what he loved. And I have to go out doing what I love, Jeff. I have to. And so I handed those clients off to him and started, I didn't even know. I just coached people for free for 2.5 years, but about 2.5 years into this process, I picked up the umbilical cord studies, and that's when I got floored. And anybody here listening to this show, after you're done, you just go to your browser and type in umbilical cord chemical. Umbilical cord chemical. You'll see the same studies that I saw. They start back in 2005. They'll look for 400 chemicals in the womb of young, healthy mothers and hopefully babies, and they're finding. If they look for 400, they find about 71% of what they're looking for. 250 toxic chemicals, 180 cause cancer in humans, 212 cause developmental and brain disorders. And this is in our children before they're even born in the womb.
Wow. Now, are these, did they determine, are these chemicals getting in by the mother and passing through the placental barrier, or are these, being caused by, something that she's being exposed to? How are these kids what's going on?
Well, I mean, the mom and dad are already polluted. Everybody listening to this radio show is polluted, period. You can't escape it. It's in the air you breathe. We breathe 400 gallons of air an hour. Think about that one. Try to, it's one thing I do with my clients. We purify people's air. We get the air in your house purified. It is a big deal, especially when you're trying to sleep. So, sorry, on the cheap, what you can do is just start cracking your windows at night, especially if you're in those energy efficient homes. They're chemical coffins is what they are, because they're constantly off gassing glues and gases and all kinds of stuff. Your home is 100 times more polluted than downtown LA on the smoggiest day. You just can't see it. Paying off gases for 4.5 years. You get a newborn baby and it's a boy, you paint it blue. The room's pink if it's a girl. and now your baby's breathing in those fumes for 4.5 years.
It's interesting you mentioned that. My son, we had moved. I was in the Army when he was born, and or right after he was born, and when they moved out to where I was stationed at, my wife and child, he was a baby and was crawling around on the floor in an apartment where they had just put in brand new carpet, and it was cheap carpet. And he ended up in the hospital emergency room, couldn't breathe. They had to put him on albuterol for, treatments. And the doctor told us that the carpet fibers, that he was breathing those in. Also formaldehyde, which is what they, soak all that in, was venting off of that and was going into his lungs.
Yeah. I have a special filter here that has zeolite in the matrix of the carbon. And it filters out that it filters out the formaldehyde. So you're basically embalming yourself if you're breathing in a carpet. It's crazy. It's everywhere. Yeah. Those I don't know if it's called Pergo or whatever. It's the fake wood floors, laminates. Yeah. That's what are laminates.
Yeah.
Dr. Stephanie Seneff from MIT show that those are directly linked to autism. Kids are crawling around on them.
Oh, wow.
They're off gassing. So where does this stuff come from? It comes from the air we breathe. It comes from the water we drink. 72% of rainwater has glyphosate in it. Let that sink in for a minute.
How's it getting into rainwater?
Well, it's the ecosystem, man. They spray it on the ground. It goes in the creeks, out in the lake, and up into the clouds, and around it goes.
Wow.
You know, I saw some water tests back in 2011, 2012 when I first started this. Like, these water researchers went around the United States, all over the world, the most pristine areas, 1,500 miles to the interior, pristine lakes. They were finding the 2 and 2.5 inch fish have both male and female organs. And why? Because the extreme amount of microplastics was the off gassing and estrogen mimickers and turning the fish into hermaphrodites. You know,
Wow.
I think back to when Alex Jones was like telling people the frogs are gay.
Frogs are gay.
With the atrazine. Well,
right.
Okay. Well, that's what's happening. Plastic, these chemicals are estrogen mimickers. They're disrupt hormones. A couple of years ago, I went down to the river down here at the local park to go swimming, and I had to take a double take. I looked over and I thought I saw a young woman with like her breasts out, like she's like 14, 15, but it was a guy. It was a boy.
Oh, wow.
And he had breasts. And I was just like, what is going on? And it's like, it's happening. Like, it's in the food and the plastics and stuff like that. And so,
what about
this stuff is also coming in through clothing. If you're not wearing natural fiber clothing, or you're wearing natural fiber clothing that's been sprayed, that's not organic, like cotton is the second highest sprayed crop behind sugarcane. So if you're wearing your little tidy whities and they're not completely organic, non-sprayed, those chemicals that were used in the pesticides are still in there, and they're off gassing into your testes. Basically.
You know, I noticed that when I've gotten I ordered a bunch of shirts for when I was running my campaign, and they were all, these were all like basically fresh shirts, and then you could, basically I was giving them to the guy that was doing the silk screening on them. But when you opened up those things out of the plastic package, the fumes that would come off of it were so strong. I mean, it just hit your face.
Yeah.
And so it's no surprise. Yeah. There's definitely chemicals in there.
We had a swag store up on our website at Chemical Free Body for a while. Mm-hmm. I had to fire these digital marketing companies. We're doing it ourselves now and getting everything right. But when I remember, I don't know do you know who Charlie Robinson is?
Name sounds familiar, but I can't.
He's a friend of mine. He's got a podcast called Macroaggressions, and he's like, Tim, he always tells people, he's like, this guy is fanatical. He's like, you think he's fanatical about his supplements and the food he eats, even his shirts. Like, because I told him, I'm like, Charlie, I'm looking for a supplier for my shirts. I need 100% organic material, so there's no chemicals in it, no sprays. And I'm also want to find where the ink is non-toxic, where the ink, And he's like, dude, and I finally found one, but the shirts were really expensive. I got them from Germany, but the quality of these shirts was amazing. And I put them on my body. Like this shirt right here, there's no chemicals in these dyes. So I'm not going to off-gas that in my body. I've learned that, back to the umbilical cord blood. So check this out. So every single child being born and every person, I sat back in my chair, I'm like, oh my God, we're all polluted. And the older we are, the more time we've had to bioaccumulate those toxins from the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, our shampoos, air fresheners. One of the worst things is sunscreen.
I just learned about there's a new study out on that.
They give you cancer. Cancer. Like there's very few. There's like Badger Company, but you got to be careful. So the sun doesn't give you freaking cancer. Okay,
right.
That's not how it works. It's all the chemicals in you when you get out into the sun, sweat out through the sweat glands, and the UV rays hit them on the skin, and that's what causes the cancer. So if you're going to be out in the sun, just rinse off every 15 minutes. Jump in the lake, jump in the river, and get them off. And get coconut oil. Raw coconut oil is a 5 SPF sunscreen. So there's a Badger Company. There's different ones that you can do that stuff. Wear long sleeve shirts. Wear a hat. Wear a hat that's going to block the sun. Wear long sleeve shirts and stuff like that. But we definitely need the sun. I mean, it's part of our immune system. We're made of light, literally, and we can talk about that. But so all these, here it is. You think the umbilical cord studies are bad. Then I find out that in the muscle and fat tissue, the chemicals are 500 to 1,000% more concentrated. And that's when I'm like, I am like, I said, I got to tell people about this. Like, this is kind of a big deal. Like, when you find out, I know that every single person out there walking around there has massive amounts of toxic chemicals in their cellular structure, in their muscle and fat tissue, and in their brain. And I know that if you get that stuff out, you're going to feel better. I know it. I just knew it instinctively. It's like, hey, if I jump off a cliff, I'm going to go to the bottom. I just kind of figured it out. And so I started teaching people what I was doing to get that stuff out of me. And I built a whole business around it. And we've kind of dumbed it down to 3 things. Again, reducing stress. If you don't learn how to do this, you're screwed. Your body will be in fight or flight, and you'll be creating lots of terrible chemicals that'll just wear you out. Number 2, you have to learn how to get these toxins out and stop putting them in. Stop putting them in. Stop buying toothpaste that says harmful if swallowed. Please contact the Poison Control Center.
Right.
Okay, think about that. Aren't you swallowing
Fluoride's
a
a toxin?
time?
Yeah.
And isn't some going through the mucous membrane in your mouth into your bloodstream directly? Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Stop buying it. You know, I learned when I was at Hippocrates that sodium lauryl sulfate is a known carcinogen. It's a suffocant used in shampoos to make it sudsy because people like sudsy stuff. I come home.
It's in every shampoo.
I looked at my shampoo. The first ingredient was cancer.
Yeah.
Sodium lauryl sulfate. I threw it in the garbage. I looked at my toothpaste. Harmful if swallowed. Oh my! They told us don't even bring anything. We'll give you all that stuff. They wouldn't even let people bring perfumes to that place because a lot of people come there were highly allergic to stuff like that, or they're on death's doorstep.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to have that reaction that your son had, right?
Yeah. Have you noticed? I was the other day. I just happened to look at the back of a Campbell soup can at the ingredients, and I noticed that at the very bottom it says includes bioengineered foods. So then I started looking at all the cans in my cupboard. Every single one of them said that on it. Then we were at the gas station the other day, and I decided to take a look at the candy, section, right? And I'm looking at the back of packages. Every single one of them contains bioengineered food ingredients.
A lot of people are not privy to this information yet. They're still consuming these foods. Number 1, I stopped eating out of cans a long time ago because of 2 reasons. Number 1, the heavy metals that leach from the cans, or they'll line it with bisphenol A. It's a hormone disruptor or something similar to it. This, BPA, BPB, BPC, BPD, BPE, BP. I mean, there's 36 of them. Aaron Brockovich got that one shut down, but then there's a whole bunch more right behind it. They don't care.
Yeah.
It's a moneymaker. So anyway, yeah, man, the processed foods are, well, I was on a podcast not too long ago, and there was a whole bunch of people on there. I was invited to it. And they were talking about Trump getting shot. Half of them were like, oh, this is terrible. And the other half were like, it was staged and blah, 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 blah. Right. And I'm like, okay, I let him talk for like an hour. And then finally one of the hosts like, Tim, you haven't said anything. I said, well, I don't know if you guys, because of the Trump news, nobody really heard the other big story. Did you guys hear about the other big story where 4,300 people were killed today? They were all like, these are all show hosts. They're plugged in to politics and the heartbeat American, what's going on. They're like, no, what do you mean? I missed it. What do you mean? I go, yeah, 4,300 people died today. Didn't you guys hear about it? And it was just like, they were just, what is it? Silence, And I know the listeners were all listening. I said, yeah, 4,300 people today died of processed foods. and that happened yesterday, and it's going to happen tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And that's what's happening. 4,300 people. Now, if I said, hey, do you remember where you're at 9/11? Most people know where they're at. Think about it. Where were you at 9/11? I know where I was. I was in my living room at Oregon City. And I'm like, I worked in the Coin Tower downtown Portland. It was a big, tall building. I'm like, I ain't going to work. I might bomb that sucker. I didn't know what was going on. My mom called me, right? It's a big deal. 2,996 people died that day. It rallied people came together. We started connecting and understand that we are connected. It was a good feeling. Unfortunately, we had to go through that tragedy to feel it.
Yeah.
4,300 people died today. And 4,300 people died yesterday, and 4,300 people are going to die tomorrow of processed food. You know, the stuff you're talking about, because it's not really food. If you're going to look at the definition of food, what's the definition of food? Well, that's to supply nutrients to the cells for mitochondrial function to create ATP and create energy for your body, for your activities of daily living. You know, does it do that? No, it's a poison. We're eating poison. We're paying for poison.
Wow.
We go work our butts off. We leave our families. Then we get our slave taxes taken out. And what little is left over, we go down to the store and we buy poisons. And then we go pollute ourselves and our children and give our kids cancer. And I mean, if you really thought this out, it's like once you're aware of it, you continue to go to the grocery store and buy this stuff, you're suicidal.
Yeah.
Take it a step further. You go to the grocery store after you learn about this stuff like I have. This is how serious it is. And you give it to your children. Aren't you murdering your kids? Aren't you? What's going on there? I mean, this is the level that it's at. And people just, because it's a slow kill. It's not like,
right.
You know, somebody shoots you and then it's like, oh my God, it's dramatic because they see it. But what if Nathan, what if you found out that your best friend's wife had been poisoning him and he died? You're going to be kind of upset at that lady, right? Or vice versa if the guy did that to well, harmful if swallowed. Please contact the Poison Control Center. It's in your toothpaste. It's in your shampoo. It's in your clothes. So here's the solution. Stop buying it. And find companies, and it's way easier nowadays to do this, to find companies, small companies, start supporting small companies that have figured this stuff out and have good products, because the quality of products is disappearing as things have been centralized.
Well, let me cut to a commercial break real quick to give a word to our sponsors. But when we come back, I want to talk more about what we can do to change things. So we'll be right back.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
Welcome back to the Raising Cane Show. Folks, check out Smoking Gun Coffee. And when you do, remember that part of their profits go to veterans. And also make sure and use the coupon code CANE when you order your coffee. Tim, I'm really, it's very disturbing.
Now we got to lighten it up, man. That was pretty heavy, right?
Well, here's something I want to bring up, because I think what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling is probably the way a lot of parents and a lot of, people feel is, what can you do but just survive? And I think about, like, I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to afford, some supplements and afford some things that help to detox and help to, to put me in a better, place. But there's a lot of people that are, poor, and they can't afford, anything but, it seems like, a lot of these processed foods and stuff like that. Have you had to run into that kind of problem when you're talking to folks?
I think about it all the time. About all the time. Somebody's got some money. It's like people hire me to coach them, and they just duplicate my lifestyle. Everything that I've learned in 13 years, we just plug and play. Boom. They get this, they get that. Boom, 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 boom. But people that are, there's a lot of people out there on a budget. Like 74% of people have less than $400 in savings.
I mean, this is why people
all by design, by the way.
Yeah.
All by design.
Well, this is why people are feeding their kids boxed foods and crap like that, because it's cheaper.
Yeah. But it's in the reality, though, it's not. It's very expensive.
You're right. Because of the
poison. You're paying for poison. It's paying for poison. So here's what you do. You eat lower on the food chain. Okay. You eat lower on the food chain and it's cheaper. And you go direct to farmers and you start buying lots of seeds, nuts, grains, and beans. And you can buy them in 50-pound bags, and you can start making stuff, and you can start sprouting stuff, and it's not hard. It's real easy. You can take red, French, or green lentils and you can sprout those in a jar on your countertop, and they will be ready in 2.5 days. You can start mixing them into hummus, putting them on chips or cucumbers. You can put them in salads. These are living foods that will literally have hundreds of thousands of phytochemicals or phytonutrients that can prevent and reverse disease. Like very powerful brain foods too. Also, mung beans are ready in 2.5 days. There's another one called fenugreek. So what it takes is awareness, and then just kind of getting off your butt, right, and starting to take some action. So usually up front there is a little bit more cost as you know, because when I go into somebody's home to help them, like somebody pays me to go in and do their whole detox, everybody's got the same stuff in their refrigerator and their pantry, dude. I've been all over the United States doing this. It's the same stuff. All the stuff that caused their problem is the same stuff that's in your cupboard and your refrigerator. So we stop putting it in there. We clean it all out. We detox the house, the pantry, and you start eating lower on the food chain. Here's the other thing. Here's the good news. Your grocery bill is going to drop in half right out of the gate. Once you clean up that sludge that's in your colon and your small intestine so you can actually absorb nutrients properly, and then you start flooding your body with nutrients. Now, I know our product is called Green 85. It's there to replace, it's a green juice mix that you mix in the water and shake it up to replace the 85% of nutrients. For most people up the middle, 98% of people, it works like a charm. Now, you were one of the people, you actually have a high allergic reaction to the wheatgrass in there, which it's the main ingredient. And I just want to let people know that even if you have full-blown celiac disease, most people it's gluten-free. Most people have no problem with it. Nathan was just a rare case. So we'll just put you on Super Soldier, right? Get you a bunch of minerals that way. But the deal is that makes it easy. Now, when people start consuming, when we help them clean up their digestive tract, right, using the gut detox product, you've been taking that, or they go get colon hydrotherapy, right, and then take gut detox to maintenance and keep those intestinal villi, those hair-like structures lining the entire intestine clean. There's people don't realize that if you took the entire surface area of your intestines and laid it all out, it's 1 to 2 tennis courts. That's a lot of surface area. So we want to keep it clean. We want to keep it clean so it can maximize nutrition. So when people start drinking these highly nutritious green juices to make up for the processed foods, where they've processed out the nutrients from the farms that are tilling out the nutrients from the soil and spraying with chemicals, when you replace that, finally your cells are getting the proper nutrition and they shut off the hunger signals. I've been saying for years, there is no different than an overweight American with a beer belly than a starving child in Africa. Both are malnourished. The only difference is the guy or gal in America has access to a bunch of inexpensive, cheap, processed, nutrient deficient foods. So you get a lot of calories coming in, and then you get fat. You get overweight, which leads to all sorts of sickness and disease. And then people feel bad about themselves and they start shaming themselves. And it's not your fault. I mean, look around in the 60s on the beach. Nobody was overweight. Now, 80% of the population is. It's your environment that's changed that deal. So change your environment. It's really simple. You clean up the colon, you clean up the cells, and then you flood the body with nutrition, and you start learning how to reduce that stress. And what will happen is the cells, again, will shut off the hunger signals, and you just can't eat as much food. It's the weirdest thing. I remember in the beginning, I still remember going, because I was a garbage gut. I ate my stuff, and my wife, I'm looking at it, and she's like, okay, well, just let me wait until I'm done, and then I'd stuff and looking at the
I'm that way with bacon. My wife says I have a bacon demon.
Yeah, so I just eat everything, And I was like, she's like, you have parasites, and she was joking, but I did. I did have parasites, and I was deficient. So that's the good thing for people on the budget. You have to understand that you have to take charge of your health. You have to learn to become your own doctor, and you can self-heal. Your immune system is amazing. I've seen so much of it under a microscope, where these little T cells and B cells and granulocytes and basophils and all these things, they go in and they just destroy pathogens and cancer, and they're working 24/7. They're doing a good job. We've been getting in their way. We got to just get out of their way.
On that note, I want to share something that I experienced years ago. I bought a laboratory grade microscope, and I was very curious about looking to see what my blood looked like under a microscope. And so I took a drop of blood, put it on a glass, and put a piece of glass over it. And I was shocked because all of my red blood cells were all like a traffic jam.
Yeah,
They
that's
were
called
all,
the Rouleau effect.
yep.
So they're
And
very
then I
low
had
on energy,
a lot of them looked like they were
like
stacked like
snakes.
coins.
They look
Yeah.
like snakes or coins
Yep.
stacked together. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I'm like, well, that doesn't look right. Because then I looked at my 20-year-old sons and his were all free floating and separated and everything.
Yep.
And so I realized something was seriously wrong. And so I started testing to see how certain things would affect my blood, because one of the things was there was a supplement that my dad had suggested that I take, which had all kinds of like natural herbs in it and stuff like that. It also had L-arginine and L-citrulline, and it was it helps your body to create nitric oxide and your vessels to dilate. And I took that 5 minutes later. That's how quick. I looked at my blood again, and all my cells were separated. Now, here's the interesting thing. I did this for a month, just testing it with different foods, different things. And I found that if I ate a salad with like oil and vinegar, did the same thing. Like made all my blood cells separate. They all looked, and I found out that there's like an enzymatic, thing that happens with these live enzymes that are in living food. That's not in dead food. And that's why, like, if I ate a steak, it didn't do that, So you only get it from things that have enzymes, that living enzymes that actually get into your bloodstream, and they can help, basically eat up some of that garbage, break it apart. And the other thing too is that it put like a negative charge on your cells, so they push away from each other.
Yep.
So
you can also do that from, just jumping up and down, like it's called Qigong. There's one of the exercises where you bounce, that will help it. But grounding, it's one of the biggest things that you can do to protect yourself. If people don't get anything else out of this talk tonight, this is it. The earth has a charge, and your naked body should be touching it. And we're not. And since the 60s and the rubber soled shoes and rubber tires and living on the second, third floor, we're not. People spend less than 1% of the time actually connected to Mother Earth. There's a reason why there's a term barefoot and pregnant. There's a reason for that term. Okay. The second you make contact with the earth, and the more moisture in the ground, the better, the more conductivity. Your cells, man, they will just if I put you out there for 2.5 to 4 hours on the ground, well, we do the same thing. We prick people's finger, we look under a microscope, and the same thing. We see that Rouleau effect. We see the sluggishness.
Mm-hmm.
God, we actually see spike proteins nowadays. And now I just went to a conference, man, where there's microchips in everybody, and it's crazy, like little square ones, and they're self-assembling. It's insane, and you can kill them with nicotine, by the way, but which is good. So you prick somebody's finger, you look at their blood, it's got that Rouleau effect, and then you go get barefoot or get naked, lay on the ground, whatever, a couple hours, come on back, prick your finger again, the blood is racing all around the screen. So you get a direct current charge from the earth. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Electromagnetic frequency, EMFs, and 5G, all this stuff that's killing everybody.
Yeah.
If you're grounded and the Wi-Fi coming through the air, it'll hit your body and zap the crap out of you. You're eating out, you're drinking out of that aluminum can. You're putting nano-sized aluminum particles in your body. You eat the canned food, besides the genetically edited and engineered foods that they're now even telling you now that are in there. The lead in there, right? I had a lot of heavy metal poisoning. So, shots, they have the aluminum right in there, and it screws you up. Nano-sized aluminum particles and chemtrails up the olfactory nerve into the brain. When the EMFs hit this stuff, they become conductors, especially in the brain. And that's, I believe, where all the autism is coming from, right? So, and we've seen kids reverse that stuff, getting that stuff out. So here's the cool thing. Even if you have all that going on, you haven't detoxed yet, and you're not aware of it. If you're grounded, the Wi-Fi or the 5G hits your body, and if you're grounded, right down to the earth.
Grounds it right
does
down.
not destroy. And then you get charged from the direct current. So the alternating current from electromagnetic frequency cannot harm you if you're grounded. right now, while we're talking, I have a grounding mat on my desk because I do a lot of show interviews and I work here. I work on my computer. I'm grounded. When I go to bed, I've got a grounding sheet. So I'm grounded all night long when I sleep. So it improves your sleep, improves your mood, you charges your cells, protects you from EMFs, grounding. And you can go to YouTube and there's 2 movies. One's called The Grounded. It was the original one. It was made by this guy that was in severe pain up in Alaska. He was like a National Geographic something or other filmmaker, and he made a little film about it. It was amazing. The Grounded, and the other one's called Earthing the Movie. You watch those 2 movies, and I guarantee you, even one of them, you're going to be like, how the hell did I not hear about this? How did I not hear about this my whole life? And you're going to get grounded because it's that profound. What does that cost? Again, for the people that are broke, they don't have a lot of money, this is a no-brainer. This is an absolute no-brainer. And it's really easy. I just go to bed. I don't got to do nothing. I bought the grounding sheet. I put it on my bed and I just go to bed. Easy. I put this pad here. It's like $59 and I just sit down and work. I'm grounded.
Wow. This, I think that's a great idea. I think there's a lot of things that people can do. I like what you had to say about, start it lower on the food chain. There's a lot of, almost every community, has, the farmers markets where you can go and, you can inspect the food. It's not something that's been, a lot of people that participate in those, that you're going to have the farmer there. You can ask him questions. What do you spray on your crops? Do you, grow your stuff organically? And I had the agriculture commissioner on my show, and I was concerned about, I was one of those that decided I was not going to get vaccinated. And in fact, I'm at the point now where I won't take any vaccine. I feel like I don't have enough trust in the medical industry anymore, in the big pharma anymore. And what's happened is now, because companies like Pfizer and Moderna, people aren't going back and getting the booster shots. So they're losing big time money. So they're coming up with new schemes on how they can, basically get the agriculture industry to force vaccinate, the pigs and cows. Those are the 2 big ones right now that they're working on trying to get the passage of these rules and stuff that will require that. And it's because a cow or a pig can't complain about adverse reactions. Huh. And so they will be able to force this in them. And then when we consume that, we're going to be taking all those additional spike proteins into ourselves. So I was asking my agriculture commissioner, I said, do you know anything about this? Like, is this something coming? Is this something that, that do we have any legislation that we're working on to, to deal with this? And he said he wasn't aware of anything, but I know that this is already happening. And especially in the pork industry, it's a real big thing right now. But it's coming for the cattle industry and the poultry industry. And one of the things that he did say, though, I said, how do we, defend against that? And he made a very good point. He said, get to know your local farmer. Go and talk to your farmer and buy your food directly from him. Mm-hmm. And I know, like, for me, like, I love eggs. I always feel great when I eat eggs, but not the ones that I get from the store. Those eggs do nothing for me. The eggs that I have are from my own chickens, and I know what they're eating, and I don't feed them anything. The only table scraps that they get are vegetables. They don't get any processed crap. And that's one of the things that I have found, has helped, is knowing where you get your food from, talking to the farmer, getting to know them. And I happen to live out in the country, so it's easy for me to find that kind of thing. But for people that live in the city, you can go to a farmer's market, and oftentimes, you can ask the people where's this coming from? How are you growing it? Are you using pesticides? That sort of thing. And the other thing too that I stopped doing, because I have a well, I stopped spraying my lawn with poison. People like to have these green lawns and they spray poison on their lawns, and a lot of the poisons, seep right through, into the, go down into the groundwater. And so
Yeah.
that's another thing that I stopped doing. And not to mention, but they found that, remember how a few years back there was all this talk about how bee colonies were collapsing. They were, bees were dying off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the number one food for bees is dandelions. And so when these bees fly around and they land on somebody's grass and they're basically being hit with all these toxins that people are spraying on their lawns, it's killing the bees. So
it's kind of insane that they have commercials running right now. My dad watches Grit TV 24/7, and all the old westerns, and there'll be a attorney company come on and go, if you've been exposed to glyphosate, the main ingredient in Roundup, you may be entitled to compensation. This groundskeeper in California just got awarded $274 million for his lymphoma cancer. Call now,
Yeah.
and it's just like they're basically telling you like it causes cancer. They're winning lawsuits, yet you can still go to your home and garden center and buy it and go down and kill yourself and your neighbors and your kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
One of
that's where it's weird.
One of my first jobs out of high school, I was working for a controlled sprayer up in Northern California. They were killing all the trees and things that were not redwoods that they were growing for harvesting. Douglas fir and redwoods are what they were growing. So we were killing like manzanita and alders. And what we did was they filled a bucket, or basically a tank that we had on our back, was filled with 50% water and 50% Roundup, because we didn't even need the whole concentration of Roundup. You only need half of it. And then we would basically hack around the outside of the tree and spray it, and it would kill the tree within 1 year.
Yeah.
And it never dawned on me this whole time, I'm spraying the stuff that's killing all these trees, and I'm breathing in these fumes this whole time as I'm walking up this hill.
Yep.
And
now they're in your muscle tissue and your fat tissue, and that you got to get it out.
Well, and then here's the thing. Here's what woke me up to that was the guy who mixed the chemicals, the old timer that's back there. He's always the one that would mix the chemicals. He'd have a respirator on. That guy died of some like 3 or 4 different rare cancers that all of a sudden just popped up in overnight, and he ended up dying. And that's when I realized, maybe this stuff's not so safe to be around.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's legal, actually, but it is.
Yeah.
So back to solutions. So just for people that might be on a budget, or even if you're not on a budget, what Nate said is a good idea. Farmers markets. There's also CSAs, a community supported agriculture, and there's these food hubs where there's these people that they're kind of like CSAs, where they have meeting places. They're very similar. They work with farmers, they work with the people, and then they meet, and you put your orders in. You pick up your fresh produce from people that you like, and farmers that you like that don't spray and they don't till, really into regenerative farming. Because what people don't, and then buy in bulk directly from farms. It's very inexpensive. Eat lower on the food chain, and detox. Get your gut cleaned up and start flooding your body with green juices twice a day. And you're going to cut your grocery bill in half. You're going to save money as you heal yourself. You're going to do that. You're going to save money as you heal yourself. And this has been going on for a long time. The kings and queens used to be the people that got sick and fat, and the peasants were stronger and healthier because they were eating lower on the food chain. They're eating things out in the earth. So,
well, Tim, I want to thank you for joining us today and for sharing your powerful journey and insights. Your passion for health and transformation, it really is infectious in a good way. And
good.
And I know a lot of our listeners have gained a lot from what you shared. But where can people follow you? Where can people find out about your products?
Yeah, everything's on our website at chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com. We haven't talked about it, but we do have an affiliate program. We should probably get you hooked up, and if not on this show, we'll get it set up, and we'll just use probably Kane as a code. If anybody goes right this second, it won't work because we don't have it set up, but I can get it on Monday. That'll give people 5% off. But the thing about our products is that these are doctor formulated. Dr. Treadway was a former Marine who went to medical school at Cornell to be a medical doctor and walked out of there, went to naturopathic school, walked out of there, and he flew to India. And he was just living around India doing yoga and meditating and trying to find somebody to teach him. And he found like one of the top dogs in Ayurvedic traditional medicine. The guy had a bunch of herbal clinics and he was taking care of dignitaries. And Scott said, will you train me? And he said, yes, I will. And so he spent years at his clinic just being his right his shadow. And he became trained in traditional Ayurvedic medicine, which is based in 10,000 years of biological engineering system science. And then he went and worked for another healer there, another doc, doing the same thing. So he worked at 2 different clinics, and then he went on after that, after becoming a master herbalist in Indian herbology. He was a master herbalist in Chinese herbology and Western herbology. The only one he wasn't able to get was the Aboriginals from Australia, because they just won't let anybody in. They're afraid Big Pharma is going to start raping their land and their bushes and their roots and stuff like that.
Probably
so
right.
And he couldn't get in, and he tried. He's a sweetheart of a guy. Lived down in Texas. He just passed away last year, but his formulas, they work, and they work really good. So usually what we do is we tell people, if you have some issues, just go to the shop tab, or you're trying to boost your energy. We have a lot of athletes. I've coached Major League Baseball players, MMA world champions. I mean, all kinds of stuff, football players, soccer players, but go to the shop tab and go to savings bundles. Those are discounted. So they have a discount. You can at least get a discount on those and pick one that kind of fits your needs. And then eventually you can put that code in Kane and you get a double discount. We have a double your money back guarantee on all of our products. That's how much I believe in them. And we don't hardly ever get returns. And if you do have an issue, you need to call us, or you send us an email to support@chemicalfreebody.com. And most likely one of my coaches or myself will be on the phone with you, and we'll coach you through the process, because we are here to help people. It's the products are just part of the toolkit. We recommend other products from other companies, all kinds of stuff that I have in my lifestyle. But the products that we have are really good. The stuff, they're just certain tools. Like if you need to hit a hammer or a nail, you need a hammer. If you need to put in a screw, you need a screwdriver. Well, if you need to clean out your gut, we use gut detox because it's gentle and it doesn't disrupt your gut microbiome. We love getting people on our nano silver solution because that reestablishes the microbiome, cleans up the negative ones, the gram negative ones, and then the greens floods it with nutrition. We've got enzymes, probiotics. We got a lot of stuff. People can go take a look. We even have toothpaste now, dude. We just launched it. I forgot. We have a nano silver toothpaste that won't kill you. How about that? Great. And we have a mouth rinse. If you swallow a little bit of it, you just boosted your immune system. How about
All
that?
right. I'll have to check that out. Hey, are you on social media for, where can people follow you?
I mean, we have social media channels, but like I said, we've the last year, and I haven't really worked. I'm just getting back at it, man, because I was taking care of my mom with her cancer, and she was taking care of my dad. So now all of a sudden I take care of mom and dad. But I've been hustling since about March of this year. So, but we're probably going to, I mean, we do a little bit of the stuff, but social media, not doing a lot of it. As soon as I get finish here with you, I got to go finish working on, I'm putting insulation and finish the inside of the chicken coop. So there you go.
Oh, all right. Well, hey, before we go, I'd like to take a moment just to close in prayer.
Let's do it.
Dear Lord, I just thank you for Tim and for what he's doing and just for this information, Lord, that he's been providing to people and helping people. And Lord, I pray that you'd help us to be good stewards of what you've given us, and Lord, in these bodies that we have. And I pray that you would help us to have the willpower and the discipline to do something about it. And I pray that you would continue to help us all to become better educated. And I pray, Lord, that you would also help our lawmakers, Lord, to become better educated about all this as well. And we just pray your blessing over everyone, Lord, who's watching the show right now, Lord, for those that are ill and that are sick, that are not well. I pray that you'd help them to find the solutions that they need. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks again, Tim, for being with us today. And for our listeners, remember, guys, you can learn more about Tim's journey and his company at chemicalfreebody.com. And you can also visit his website for more information. And as always, please follow and subscribe my show. And you guys can follow me at Nate Kane for WV on pretty much all social media. And you can catch all of my shows, including this one, on theraisingcaneshow.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay informed, and God bless.
Raise some. Hey, hey, hey. Gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless, day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.